It's a while since I made a video about my underactive thyroid problems, and that's because I've been doing different things to try and treat it, and I just wasn't getting any clear signals as to whether they were working or not. But recently I really think that I've seen some signs that things are starting to improve. So I'm going to just explain the various things that I've been doing, and also I've managed to lose half a stone. So I'll talk about that later. About 6 weeks ago, I started to notice that my pulse rate, my resting pulse rate and my temperature levels were rising quite considerably up to the mid-60s instead of the mid-50s. And I thought that was a great thing until I realised that I started to get this really bad cold, and it lasted at least 2 weeks. And I think really I just had kind of flu-y, slightly feverish symptoms, and that's maybe why my temperature and pulse had risen so much. So they fell back sadly, but over the weeks they have started to increase a bit, and quite often now they're in the early to mid-60s. Otherwise they're in the sort of late 50s, and they're hardly ever down at 50 beats a minute as it was before. So my resting pulse rate has really improved, and my temperature is more consistently good as well. One of the things that I've been doing to try and treat the problem is taking high doses of iodine, and I've been taking 50 milligrams of iodine every single day, which is a very high dose, for several months now. I started to wonder whether that was even enough, or whether my body was actually absorbing it, because I just felt that I should be improving at a faster rate than I was. And I wondered whether I should add maybe 12.5 milligrams. The first thing that I did was I changed the brand, and I don't really think that that's important, but I just thought I would try and make it, and maybe see if taking a different brand of iodine maybe my body might handle it better. So instead of taking Iodorox, I started taking Iodorol. And instead of taking 4 12.5 milligram tablets, I've been taking one 50 milligram tablet every day. The other thing I decided to do was to add seaweed to my diet, because it just occurred to me that maybe for some reason my body isn't absorbing the iodine in the tablets as much as it should do. So I thought maybe I'll experiment with adding some seaweed. So every single morning I've been making myself a breakfast, quite an unusual breakfast, and it's a type of breakfast that I used to have years ago, and just because I liked it. So maybe I even needed more iodine at that time. So what I do is I boil up about 500 ml of water in a pan, and I add some miso, and then I add about a handful of noodles. I don't usually measure it out, depending on how hungry I am. I add 2 eggs to that, and I tear up about a handful of nori, or laver, I think that's the other word for that. It's that really thin green, dark green seaweed. I think it's absolutely delicious. So I've been having that every day for breakfast. Maybe it's been working. It's really difficult to tell because I've been trying so many different things. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was getting ready to go to a friend's party, and I looked in the mirror and was absolutely horrified really to notice that my eyebrows were really bushy and they seemed to be really messy. So I had to pluck my eyebrows, and it just occurred to me after that I used to pluck my eyebrows regularly, not into a really thin shape, just really to sort of tame them and stop them being really messy. But I hadn't had to do that for about 3 years because they just weren't growing very much. And that is another sign of an underactive thyroid. Quite often you get, people sometimes get hair loss with underactive thyroid, or they just don't get very much hair growth. I hadn't thought about that until I looked in the mirror and suddenly noticed that I had really quite bushy eyebrows. So that was a good sign really. It shows that things are improving. Also, before I go into this, I would advise you, if you're eating, you might want to look away, but I was walking up a mountain about a week ago, and I needed to put on a warmer top. So when I took my fleece off, I noticed that my t-shirt was absolutely drenched in sweat. And I've actually got a picture here, so if you're eating, just look away for a minute. I know that when I've walked up mountains in the past, I might have felt really hot, I might have been puffing and panting, but I didn't have that much sweat on my t-shirt. And this wasn't a particularly hot day, you know, this is in April, early April. The temperature was probably about, I think it was about 10 or 11 degrees Celsius. That is another sign that things are improving. Because when you've got hypothyroidism or an underactive thyroid, you don't sweat as much, which in many ways it's quite a nice thing, but it's not really healthy. It's not healthy to be really struggling, huffing and puffing up a mountain, and yet you're not really sweating very much, because sweat serves an important purpose of sort of removing toxins from the body and cooling us down as well. I've also been doing a lot more exercise. I've been trying to do a lot of exercise really for over a year, because I thought if I exercised that might help my fitness improve, and it might help me lose weight as well. But that just didn't happen. All that happened was that I felt tired and exhausted. I think in my last video I was talking about a walking program that I was doing. I thought if I could walk regularly at a relatively fast pace, that might help me increase my fitness. It probably did a little bit, but on the other hand, that's when I started to get this really bad cold. I just felt more and more tired. I felt I could do less and less, and then I got my cold, which it's typical when you've got this condition, this hypothyroidism, that you do exercise and you feel great one day, and then you get that crash and you just can't do it anymore. Well, recently I've been able to exercise and I haven't really been getting that crash very much. To be honest, I can't even remember the last time I got a real crash after doing exercise. What does happen is I usually, if I've been doing a lot of exercise, I tend to sleep in the next day, or I feel quite tired the next day if I can't sleep in. For example, last week I climbed Ben Vorlich in Loch Lomond, which is, well, near Loch Lomond. It's 945 metres high. It's quite a tough climb. It's very steep at the beginning. I really enjoyed it. I was on my own. I went at my own pace. I took as many breaks as I needed, but I was fine. I actually did it in quite good time. But the day before I did that climb, I actually was at the climbing centre doing indoor climbing for about 2 hours. And then the day after the climb, I did indoor bouldering at the climbing centre for another couple of hours. And the day after that, I slept most of the day. I was really tired, so that was like a crash. But I mean, I think anyone would probably have had a bit of tiredness after doing all that. The day after that, I climbed Ben Vorlich again. Part of the reason I climbed it was as a recce for doing a group walk a few days later. So 3 days after the first time I climbed it again. And the significant thing about that was, first of all, I was just as fit as everyone else. I had no problems getting up the mountain. I wasn't huffing and puffing any more than anyone else. And the next day, and the day after that, I had no aches and pains whatsoever. And I think that's a first. It really shows that my fitness is improving, which is just fantastic. So part of the reason that I've been doing so much exercise, climbing Ben Vorlich twice within 3 days, and doing a lot of climbing and indoor bouldering, is because I'm going to the Lake District this weekend. So I'll be doing 3 mountainous walks in 3 days, 3 consecutive days. And I just want to try and be as fit as I can be for that. Really looking forward to it. So the other good thing is that I've actually managed to lose weight. This is the first time I've managed to lose weight in 3 years. This has been the strange thing. In the past, I used to, if I went on a diet, the weight would just come off so easily. I've always been lucky, and I've always had a high metabolism until this hypothyroidism condition happened. And since then, no matter what I did, I could not lose weight. I did so many different types of eating plans, exercise, all kinds of things. Nothing seemed to work. So finally I seem to have found something that is working, and I've managed to lose half a stone. That half a stone takes me back to where I was at the end of 2016, because I put on another half stone just around Christmas time, and it was so frustrating because I wasn't actually really overeating, apart from actually on Christmas Day. I was really trying to be healthy. I did a hill walk 2 days after Christmas, and yet the weight just piled on. So now it seems to be coming off. The diet that I've been doing is the fast diet. It's the diet where you fast for 2 days out of every 7, and it's 2 non-consecutive days. So I've been fasting on Monday and Thursday every week for the last three and a half weeks. On a fast day, you eat 500 calories if you're a woman, 600 calories for a man. The way that I do it is I make myself 2 green smoothies, and I have 1 green smoothie in the morning and 1 green smoothie in the evening. And between that time, I just drink water, sometimes a cup of coffee or tea. For 2 green smoothies, I have 2 small bananas, a quarter of a pineapple, and water, and a handful of spinach or kale. And that amounts to roughly 500 calories. And I have one of those smoothies at breakfast time and the other one at about mid-evening, because you're meant to have at least a 10-hour break between the 2 meals that you have. Or it doesn't have to be 2 meals, but at some point in the day you're advised to have at least a 10-hour break, ideally a 12-hour break, just so that your body can really get into that fasting mode. The other thing about doing this fast diet is that I find it quite easy to do. On the fast days, after I've had my morning smoothie, I just don't feel hungry until maybe I get a few twinges around lunchtime. Then I get absorbed in my work during the afternoon, forget all about my hunger pangs, if I have any. And then usually late afternoon, that's when I start having a few hunger pangs, maybe some food fantasies. But I know that I'm going to have my evening smoothie in a couple of hours. And once I've had that, I feel fine. I don't have any problems sleeping. The first day I did it, I didn't feel hungry really at all, not until about tea time, 5:30, 6 p.m. But what I did feel was very, very tired. Usually I don't have a nap during the day, I don't feel really tired during the day. But when I was doing this fast, I felt almost overwhelmingly tired. And I thought, and that happened the second day of my fast as well, that Thursday. But after that it started to ease off. And I do think that there's a connection between weight gain and just tiredness, weight gain and stress and exhaustion. I think I have noticed before that when I get tired in the evening, I get cravings for food. And that's when you can, not just in the evening, but when you get tired and you're pushing yourself to keep going, you're overworking, that's when you eat more. What usually happens is that you get cravings for sweet, sugary food because you want that instant, quick fix energy boost. But even if you eat relatively healthy food, if you're eating it to keep yourself going when you're really tired and you really need to slow down and take a rest or a sleep, then that food is likely to get turned to sugar in the blood just to give you that energy that you need. And I think that's a big factor in weight gain. What's happened with me with this hypothyroidism is that I've been trying to rest, but it's almost as if you can never get enough rest. Maybe the iodine is helping. I've been trying so many different things, it's really difficult to say which exact thing has been helping me the most. But in doing this fasting, it seems to sort of focus your mind on your need for sleep. And so when you do rest, you get to sleep at the right time at bedtime and you get a really good deep sleep. And I think that's been really just helping me so much. I've lost an inch of my waist and I've lost almost an inch of my hips and bust as well. But it was my waist that I'd noticed that I was really gaining, that was the area I was really gaining fat. And that's a worrying thing because that's the most unhealthy place to put on weight. You know, it's when you get weight gain around your middle. If you get a lot of weight gain, that can be a danger sign. So I'm really pleased that that's starting to come off. And it really seems that my fitness has improved markedly since I've been doing this diet. It could be that because I'm half a stone lighter, I've got half a stone less to carry when I'm going up the mountain or on the climbing wall. So that's probably a factor. But I've noticed that I love climbing. I really love it. And I tend to just get addicted and do more than I should. You know, I get overtired. The routes that I just couldn't do a few weeks ago, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, I can do easily now. So I'm really improving. It's almost as if I've just had this huge fitness boost, and I'm sure it's because I've been, you know, it's a payback from all the effort that I've been putting into it. But also, I think things are starting to improve and starting to come together. I really hope that the next time I make a video, I'm going to see even more improvement. I hope things don't go backwards again. I think there's going to be a big psychological boost when my weight actually falls below 11 stone. Because when all this started, you know, 3.5 years ago or 4 years ago, my weight was about 9.5 stone. And it seemed to go from 9.5 stone to 11 stone almost overnight. I mean, it wasn't really overnight, it was over several months. But it just seemed that I was just on this slide suddenly and nothing I was doing would work. All the usual things of eating less, doing more exercise, it wasn't working. Suddenly all this weight just piled on. So for the last 3 years, I've been walking around at 11 stone and then 11.5 stone. Once it goes below that 11 stone mark, I am really going to be celebrating. So let's hope that's soon. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please give it a thumbs up and feel free to subscribe. Thanks for watching.